Good evening, everyone, and I want to thank you all for being here. We want to go ahead and have everyone stand as Councilman uh, Chappelle will lead us in prayer, and I ask you please remain standing for the pledge. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started on our regular agenda for tonight. First item is to consider approval of minutes of the June 20th, 2023 regular session. Council, we've had a chance to review the minutes. Floor be open for a motion.
I move for the approval of the minutes from the June 20th, 2023 regular session.
I will second that motion.
Have a motion by Councilman Walker, second by Councilman Chappelle. Madam Secretary, record a vote, please.
Aye.
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 Vote is unanimous. We'll now move on to item 2. Item 2 is public comments. At this time, if we have anyone that would like to speak, please come up and address the council, leading with your name and address. You'll have 2 minutes. Okay, council.
I'd like to say this past weekend we had a lady pass away here in Tamish, Donna Spigner, that worked for the city for years and years, and she was a integral part of the city. And I just wanted to say on behalf of myself, and I know the entire city, that we offer our condolences to her family, Greg, Brad, and Sheila Donnelly, and her husband Jimmy. Like I say, she was very important for the city, and was truly missed when she retired. But I just want to offer our condolences and our thoughts and prayers that can go with the family during this difficult time.
All right, thank you, sir. Okay, at this time, we'll go ahead and close item 2, and we'll now move on to item 3, which item 3, we made an adjustment tonight on the agenda. We're gonna move item 9 up to our number 3 spot, and we're gonna go on from there. The third item will be the discussion of our curfew ordinance. Chief?
Good evening, Council, Mayor, and Mr. Thatcher. So this is just for your information. So our current ordinance for curfew that we had in place required a renewal by the council every 3rd year. So we were looking at bringing it forward to you, and what we discovered is House Bill 1819 this year, which was signed by the governor a couple of weeks ago and unanimously passed by the Senate, removed the ability for cities to enact curfews for juveniles. So we're not going to bring it to you. That ordinance by default will expire. Actually, it's expired already. This new law at the state goes into effect September 1st, so nothing will change for us. We haven't been enforcing it this summer, and we will continue not to enforce it and not have the ability to in the future. So any questions I'm happy to answer, but it's pretty cut and dry.
My understanding of it was that the state it supersedes all cities, any ordinance that might exist from not just us but any other city. This trumps all of it, correct?
Yeah, it's across the state.
So is there anything new, though, in this House bill that you'll have to enforce or look at different from the previous ordinance that we had?
No, all the new language basically just prohibited cities from enacting any curfew ordinances or having any in place, and then it removes some language regarding curfews. So nothing new for us to enforce.
Mayor and council, I'll just point out, I remember years ago when they that we first started doing curfews, juvenile curfews. And the juvenile crime rate in every city went down immediately just because we said at a certain time you gotta be home. So I'm not sure what their purpose is, but I'm just pointing out we may see a rise in some of that now. But the legislature seems to want to limit our ability to do things, and so they're doing that.
Yeah, I can tell you the bill that was proposed was supported by Homeschooling Coalition. I think that was part of it. There were cities that had curfews in place on school days during daytime hours for school. We didn't have such a curfew, so that was one of them. And then obviously there was some other supporters that just didn't feel like we could limit movement of anybody at night. But anyways, we'll continue obviously to make stops and enforce suspicious stuff and go to our parks and look for stuff that's going on. But the curfew, which is a status offense only for juveniles, will no longer be able to make a stop based on that.
We do still have the ability, though, to enforce certain restrictions of certain areas, such as parks or public buildings, or that's not a curfew, but restriction like after a certain period of time, a time at night you can't be in there. We can still do that, right?
Yeah, as long as they don't target a specific group, right? So our park curfews for anybody. Nobody can go into the park after a certain hour. So those curfews are fine. And this, like I said, this mainly was just juvenile curfews, which is a status offense just for minors. Their status as a juvenile, saying we could stop them anywhere and question as to their behavior. There were certain, the law had certain allowances for them to be out and about, but if they weren't within those parameters, then we can contact parents and issue citations and stuff, similar to a truancy, just for juveniles. That hasn't changed. Truancy will still be there, but the curfews are gone.
Well, thank you, Chief. All right, at this time, we'll go ahead and close that item on the agenda, and we'll go back up to our original third item on the agenda, which is the financial presentation of audit. Ms. Lori?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight we have with us John Watson. He's with the audit firm Brooks Watson, I apologize. And they're the city's auditors. So he's going to go over the findings that they've uncovered during the audit. Please welcome John.
While John's coming up here, just let you know, we tried to hire Brooks, but we couldn't, so we went to Watson.
Well, I'm here anyway. Thank you, Ed. Thanks, Lori, Council Mayor. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight. So I've got a PowerPoint, and y'all have the report in front of you. If you flip that open, it's a handout. It'll be on the screen as well. So we completed the audit over the year ended September 30, 2022. So this information all relates to that year. The audit followed U.S. GAAS. That's generally accepted auditing standards. General approach for any government in the United States. It's a three-phased approach. The first phase is the planning phase. That's where we look at the results, we compare them to prior year, we compare them to our expectations, try to focus on areas we find most susceptible of risk or fraud or error. And that leads us to the fieldwork stage where we test those results. We compare them to samples, underlying evidence, corroborate information with third parties, and other tests to make sure things are recorded accurately. And then the last phase is the conclusion reporting phase. We look at how things were recorded, propose audit adjustments where necessary, and accumulate those results and help prepare this report you all have in front of you. So that is a U.S. GAAS audit. The report itself, there's 7 sections to it. The first section is the introductory section, has a letter of transmittal from your management, describes what's going on with the city and some forward-looking information. The audit opinion follows that. That's from us. Your independent auditor describes whether the financials are consistent with U.S. GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, or if there are any modifications. We'll take a look at that on a slide to come. Management's discussion and analysis follows that. That shows your current year results compared to your prior year and some explanations over significant changes. The basic financials follow that. 2 types of presentation, government-wide, which has all your debt and capital asset activity, then fund level, which is more consistent with how you budget. Toward the back of your report, you've got your budget to actual schedules. We'll take a look at that for your general fund where most of your activity occurs. And then the pension schedule, we'll take a look at that. You can see your pension position year over year. Very back of your report is the statistical section. some good information to see 10-year trends, can see where the city was 10 years ago and see where it's progressed over the last 10 years. So it's a comprehensive report, quite a bit in there, and those are all the sections. I mentioned the independent audit report. So this is kind of our grade, if you will, over these financial statements. There's 4 types of opinions that you could receive. Unmodified is the best. It's at the top here, indicated in green, and then it gets progressively worse from there: modified, disclaimed, or adverse. So the city receiving an unmodified opinion, that is a good thing. That is the highest level of assurance the CPA can provide. So there are no material errors or inaccuracies in this report that we are aware of. In addition to that, the city received Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from the GFOA. So this is kind of going above and beyond. Cities aren't required to submit that to the GFOA, but your city did, and they did receive that award. So that's a national program. Special reviewer looks at your report, make sure it hits certain criteria, and you hit those criteria and receive the award. So good thing that was done by the staff there. Just some highlights, some comparison over some financial line items year over year, some summary level items here. So just working top to bottom, the change is on the right column here. Cash decreased about $6,178,000. That was due to deploying cash for capital asset improvements during the year. Net position increased slightly, about $80,601. Your governmental fund balances increased $1,379,000. Unassigned general fund balance decreased by $567,000. Proprietary funds, unrestricted net position for that particular funds increased by $3.9 million. And you can see below that why, net operating income of about $2 million. Your debt stayed relatively close to the same, which I know y'all are aware. So your new debt kind of almost washed with those payments during the year. Slight increase of about $495,000 relative to the almost $95 million. Improvement in your net pension liability, and we'll take a look at that toward the end of this presentation. It improved by $1.6 million, so it went from about $4.9 million down to $3.2 million. So that was an improvement. This will look at your governmental activities revenues, so just that side, not the water and sewer. Total governmental revenues for the current year were $18,788,000 relative to prior year, which was about $19.6 million. Sales taxes made up 34% of your revenues, $6,435,000. Prior year, it made up 30% at about $5.8 million. Property taxes made up 23%, $4,336,000. Prior year, it was 22%, about $4.2 million. Charges for services made up 12%, $2,187,000. Prior year, it was 10%, about $2,050,000. Franchise and local taxes, 11% in the current year, $2,066,000. Pretty close to prior year, also 11%, $2,119,000. Royalty income increased. It was 5% in the current year, $1 million, around $1 million there. In prior year, it was $758,000, so increase there. The overall decrease was grants and contributions, which will vary year over year, but your federal grants decreased year over year. Okay, so that was where the money came from, and here's where it was deployed on the governmental activities side. Total governmental expenses were $20,274,000. Prior year was $17,751,000. Your largest expenses, public safety makes up 46%, about $9.4 million. Prior year was 52%, $9,156,000. General government makes up 18%, $3,573,000. Prior year, 19%, about $3.4 million. Parks and Rec, 14% in the current year, $2.9 million. Prior year was 11%, $1.9 million. You all had the sports complex, and the Civic Center was open for a complete year in '22, so that fed into that increase there. Public Works made up 19%, $3,859,000, and prior year was 16%, to about $2.8 million. A few more slides for you. So that was government-wide level. This is more granular look at your funds. We've got the general fund on the left here. That's where the majority of your activity occurs. And you got street fund and some consolidation of your non-major funds, third from the left. So we just circle the net change here. So that's revenues less expenditures and other financing sources. We can see the general fund increased by about $1 million. So that operated at a surplus at a fund level Street fund operated at that deficit there of $1,091,000. And then overall non-majors were $1,469,000. So you had that total increase that I mentioned on the earlier slide, $1,379,000. This slide here is your general fund. So in the left column is your final budget. So this is your original budget plus all budget amendments made. Ended up at a deficit operation there of close to $50,000, $49,450. And then the middle is the actual. So you can see your actual was $1 million surplus relative to the negative $49,450. So that fed into that bottom right there, positive $1,050,000. That was due to primarily capital outlay expenses. Those were below your budget. That's what's feeding into that $1,347,000 there. So that was the primary underlying event there. Okay, so that was the governmental side. This is the proprietary side, your water and sewer and airport. So with circled operating income here, these are considered business type activities. So generally they should be paying their own way. They should be operating like a business. So we circle that to make sure it is. You can see your water and sewer, it is operating at surplus, which is the expectation. It needs to be because there's quite a bit of capital, pretty capital intensive for that infrastructure. So it was $2,929,000. Airport, on a full accrual level, did have an operating loss of $387,000. Now, on a cash level, it was positive because depreciation expense, which is just a book expense, it was around $590,000. So on a cash level, it was positive, but you should note on a full accrual operating level, it was negative. So something to consider there. So overall, this fed into the positive net change for the water sewer at the bottom there, $235,000, and then the negative for the airport due to that depreciation factor mentioned. Okay, pension liability. So in the left column, we've got the most recent year, and then the last 3 years preceding that. The bottom circle here in red, that is your net pension liability. So you can see your change year over year. Last year, you were sitting at $4,928,000 in net pension liability. That is a funded position of 89%. So the asset was 89% of the liability. This year, you're sitting at 94%. So the asset is now 94% of the liability, and you're in a liability position of $3,265,000. Average is somewhere around 78% net pension liabilities government-wide in the United States. So 94% is well funded. Just circled above the kind of big X factor here, net investment income. So you had net investment income for the year of $5,367,000. That really helped with eating away at that net pension liability. So that'll ebb and flow depending on the stock market, but it was a good year, so that helped you out there. And also, just the impact you feel, the bottom bullet here, contribution rates. That's really where you feel it in the budget. So if you get in a worse funded position, you can expect contribution rates will need to increase. You're sitting right around 15%. 22 was 14.95%. Before that, it was 14.83 and 15.15. So that's as a percentage of gross payroll. So you can factor that out as an expense if you'd like. Okay, so that is everything related to the numbers I wanted to share, as well in the audit itself. Also, there's a couple letters that y'all have in front of you. Those are standard communications. You should get those for any audit. Anytime there's audit adjustments, those will be listed in those letters. We also, if we encounter things within internal controls, which is very common, we do a lot of walkthroughs, processes with different personnel, and those will be listed in there. That's the second letter. Went over that in quite a bit of detail with the audit committee earlier, and took some questions there, but that's all I wanted to share today. So if you have any questions, happy to address them at this time. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Council, do we have any questions at this time?
Are there any recommendations at all that we need to be aware of, considering, maybe not we've done wrong, but we could do better, or, not do anything like that?
Yeah, so as part of that second letter, there are some recommendations there. It's in your packet there. Yeah.
Are any of them like really heavy duty, or is it just some normal type ideas?
Yeah, so one of them relates to closing process, which is common. We did have audit adjustments, so when there are audit adjustments, we're gonna cite the closing process because it took us to propose those adjustments to get things corrected. That's something that I'll be working with the city and Lori, the finance director in particular, just trying to provide feedback and help them improve so that closing process is buttoned down more so that just there'll be less and less adjustments each year. That's kind of the goal there. So that I wouldn't say that's unique though. That's the case for a lot of cities. The other items are a little more unique because we do pride ourselves on going through a lot of different processes and controls, and so those are those other suggestions. But we don't consider those significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. Those are really, we're just going to share some information with you as we come across it.
One thing we talked about this afternoon was in an audit meeting. I'm on the audit committee, Councilman Walker and Mr. Thatcher and our finance director this afternoon, prior to our meeting here. And the one thing we talked about was increasing some revenue off of interest, this year. And going forward, we see possibly a little more because we never know what the feds are gonna do, but we feel pretty certain there's gonna be another, 2.5 coming forward here and maybe another one before the end of the year. So, as we all know, what interest rates were back a year and a half ago is significantly different, especially with the large sums of money that the city deals with that are in some low-bearing interest accounts, but it amounts to some sizable money over the year. Would that be correct?
Yeah, that's right. And there's you can see the investment income in 22 compared to 21. 21 it was around 60,000, and then 22 is closer to 580,000, about a tenfold increase due to those rate increases you're mentioning. So kind of expect that trend to maybe not go exponentially up, but it'll probably stay the same or even increase if rates continue to increase.
All righty, do we have any further questions? All right, thank you, sir. We appreciate you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you so much, John. Appreciate the meeting this afternoon too.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we'll go ahead and close that item on the agenda and move on to our next item. Our next item would be to consider approval of a pay request from Watson Commercial Construction Ltd. for the work on the community center. Ms. Jordan, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are y'all doing? So we have gotten the building to substantially complete. We got the C of O, which means that all of the fire alarm and fire suppression items, they were able to get the parts in and complete those items so that you can technically occupy the building now as its intended use. And so I spoke to Ricky earlier this week, but part of that substantial completion certificate is transferring ownership essentially over to you, meaning insurance, maintenance. It is now y'all's responsibility for security, things of that nature. And the only thing really remaining from the contractor are a few signage items, which were added later on in the process that they're waiting to come in. One of them is set to ship out on the 21st, and the other one is set to ship out in 15 days. So I really feel like within 20 to 30 days, all of them should be here and installed, and will be at 100%. But technically, we are to a point where you could occupy the building if you so chose to, and we are to substantial completion. And so the pay app is certified in the amount of $67,338. Most items have been brought to 100%. Whenever I spoke to the contractor, there's still a few subs that basically just wait until the substantial completion certificate is issued before they issue out their 100%. But most of that's remaining from the contract sum is your 10% retainage, and that's released upon final payment whenever everything is 100% complete. So that's all that's really remaining, and them turning over the final documents, which is all of the warranties, manuals, closeout documents, things of that nature.
So what date are you looking at it being turned over to the city for the insurance and all where's ours?
We are waiting for the contractor to give us a definitive date. One of the items on the substantial completion certificate is that the contractor warranties that they will complete the items that are remaining within X number of days. And so they're trying to get confirmation of when those items will ship to ensure that they're staying within what they're certifying.
So you're thinking the next 30 days, 60 days?
I think that they're going to agree to 30 days. And so that substantial completion document, though, once it's signed, that's whenever y'all do, whenever the 1 year period starts. And that's also whenever y'all will be in charge of your own insurance and things like that. So once we issue that and you sign, us sign, and the contractor signs, at that point, that's whenever the 1 year warranty begins. That's whenever y'all take essential ownership of the building.
Jordan, is the completion status for wall tile, sanitary panels, aluminum canopies, and landscape accurate in here?
No, the contractor doesn't bill you until they have been billed by that sub. And some of those subs just wait until they've gotten that certificate to say that they're 100% complete before they issue their final invoice, if you will. So no, they are 100% complete on site. They just haven't billed for their 100% billing yet.
Mayor and council, just point out that because we have, as Jordan said, there'll be some things we need to do, like bathroom soap dispensers, towel dispensers, things like that. We'll put in, and once we get it, and we're planning on maybe a ribbon cutting around the 7th of, specifically 7th of September. But again, it's not a hard date. We think, like Jordan said, that maybe the next 20 or 30 days we'll have it, and then we'll have our stuff to be able to move in, and so it'd be a grand opening around the 7th of September. If things change, then we'll, of course, push that back. So that's what we're looking at.
All righty. Council, we have any further questions? All right. We'll open the floor for a motion. Thank you, Jordan.
I'll make a motion that we approve this pay request from Watson Commercial Construction, Ltd. for the work that's been done on the community center, and the financial impact amount of $67,338 has been presented.
I will second that.
All right, we have a motion made by Councilman Dale, second by Councilman Chappelle. Madam Secretary, record a vote, please.
Aye.
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 Vote is unanimous. We'll now close that item on the agenda.
Thank you for coming, Jordan. It was nice to see your helpers. Did you all realize that the Astros are actually in Houston? Did you know that?
All right, we'll go ahead and close that item. We'll now move on to our next item on the agenda. Our next item is to consider approval of pay requests from Old Holden Oil Field System Service Incorporated for the work on the Big Tex lift station improvements.
Appreciate you allowing me to be here, Council, Mayor, Mr. Thatcher. What you have before you is a pay request for Big Tex lift station. We'll tell you that the lift station is working and has been working for several weeks now. The storm event slowed us down on getting the permanent power there, but it worked with temporary power for a while too. We do have a concern with one of the pumps. One of the pumps that we waited for 6 or 8 months for came in and had a little vibration and whatnot, so we're getting that worked on, but it is working, and the manufacturer has provided a spare pump to put in the hole, so we have a backup pump, so we're in good shape there. So this pay estimate is for $178,878.77. The original contract was $399,868, and we're withholding about $29,832 in retainage right now.
What is the period on the warranty on this from them, and when does it start?
So the warranty starts upon acceptance of the project itself. So even though the pumps are installed, we haven't accepted the project, so it won't start until we actually send them an acceptance for the project.
And how long is that, as far as the warranty goes?
So the warranty of the general, lift station itself is 1 year, but there's like a 5-year warranty on the pumps, and it's prorated warranty, I believe. I believe it's 5.
So Lenny, what remains? It says it's 75% complete. So can you kinda explain the other 25?
So all that remains right now is a, all-weather access road and some fencing. The 75% is just because of the way the numbers worked out with the repayments and everything.
They've got it all dressed up around there and all now.
They've got it dressed up. I did not look today to see if they had everything demoed, but they had it dressed up. They were supposed to have everything demoed where it's all clean. But they had all the holes filled in and everything. They were just, the old lift station, the old wet well itself, they were actually collapsing and filling in.
Okay, council, we have any further questions? Floor is open for a motion.
I make a motion to approve pay request for the Big Tex lift station improvement. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Councilman Chappelle, second by Councilman Adams. Madam Secretary, record a vote, please.
Aye.
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 The vote is unanimous. We will now close that item on the agenda. All right, our next item is to consider approval of pay request from Heritage Constructors Incorporated for Southside Wastewater Treatment Plant.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and Mr. Thatcher. So I'll be presenting the pay request for the Southside Wastewater Treatment Plant. This is estimate number 2, and this is a 2-year project, so there will be a few more of these. This is for pay period of May 26th through June 25th. And percent complete on time, we're about 5.5%, and percent complete on dollar amount is 6%, so we're pretty close. The amount payable for this estimate was $1,209,182.80. Do you have any questions on the items being requested?
I might add for the public here that this project was a $40,539,000 project, and we've had, the first payment request, which we authorized, was, $957,000, so this would be our second one for the $1.2 million. And the contract time on this, is it still, 750 days?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, council, we have any further questions?
Y'all are satisfied with all the work that's been done?
Yes.
All righty, floor is open for a motion.
I'll make a motion we approve this pay request from Heritage Contractors, Inc. for the Southside Wastewater Treatment Plant for the financial impact of $1,209,182.80 has been presented.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion made by Councilman Dale, second by Councilman Adams. Madam Secretary, record a vote, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
The vote is unanimous. We'll now close that item on the agenda. Our next item is to consider approval of a change order number 1 and final pay request to Anchor Contracting LLC for work on pavement rehabilitation phase 3. Lonnie?
Mayor, Council, Mr. Thatcher, once again, it's a pleasure to be here. What you have before you is change order, number 1 and the final pay estimate for, Anchor Constructions for the, overlays and, repairs on roads as well, that we discussed at the last, council meeting. The amount for the change order is $33,019.73, if I can read, $29.73, and the final pay estimate is $643,680.47. The change order was, the reason we got to the change order is because when we actually did the work, or did the design of it, we did a visual observation of where we thought there were soft spots. When we actually got to the design, we drove a loaded dump truck over the soft spot areas, and we found a little bit more length of repairs that needed to be done in certain areas, as well as we had a little bit more milling, just to get down to where we were at the curb line, in another area. So we added a little extra asphalt because of that, a little extra length to the repairs itself. And, asking for both these items to be approved together.
Lenny, are we still within our budget on this? What was the budgeted amount for this total project?
So the original budget for the project was $700,000, so we're still under the original budget for the project itself. And that was, it may have been a little bit more than 700, but 700 was our goal.
So we're looking at total right now at 643, 680.
The actual final cost of the change order, everything, 687, 916, 98.
So that 643 don't include the 33 change order that I'm looking at then.
So it's a little confusing. So what you do is you add the 33 to the original contract, and you come up with a 698 or 687 for the final cost of the project. And so what we paid before gets us back to what I'm asking for at this pay estimate.
All right, do we have any questions? All right, floor is open for a motion. Thank you, Lenny.
I make a motion to approve change order number 1 and final pay request to Anchor Contracting for work on pavement rehabilitation phase 3 as presented.
I second the motion.
All right, we have a motion made by Councilman Chappelle, second by Councilman Walker. Madam Secretary, record a vote, please.
Aye.
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 And the vote is unanimous. We'll now close that item on the agenda. Our next item is a public hearing and presentation on the 2022 Drinking Water Quality Report. Mr. Reyes.
So pretty much for last year, we didn't have any violations, and we met all requirements for the state. I don't know, y'all wanna look through the report and if y'all have any questions.
You asking if we wanted you to go through the report?
Yeah, pretty much we met all the requirements. All chemical results were good. Chlorine residuals were good. We didn't have any violations on the byproducts or anything like that. So,
All right, Council, do we have any questions?
Do we have any areas that you still had to treat to get it to the required levels though, that we have issues with from time to time? Is there any chemical areas that we have concerns with that we have to keep a close eye on?
not really. Pretty much we always stay, right below. So we keep an eye on that all throughout the year. That way we don't get too close to where we could bust, a violation on THMs or, anything like that byproduct wise. So we keep an eye on the water rates real good. So that's I would say that's the main concern usually, not having a problem with THM, especially right now during the summer. So we keep a real close eye on that. Water age is good, so we try to keep the water fresh at all times, and that keeps us away from having those issues.
Thank you, Paul. Mayor and council, I'd just like to say Paul is well versed and trained in water treatment, certified, and we're real proud of the job he does for us. And he's here in Anthony's place. Anthony's out of town on vacation, so I appreciate him coming and appreciate him standing up in front of this council. They're scary to me too, but I don't have to look at them, so
Yeah, something new for sure.
Didn't mean to make you nervous there, buddy.
Nah, it's all right. Just first time being up here, so. But I mean, I can answer whatever you want. It's about my 7th year being the foreman, so everything's is good, for last year. I mean, we had some rough times with the, winter weather mostly, but we still stayed in compliance. So, no boil water notices, nothing like that. So, we're good.
With the water and wastewater when I came is that there's been no EPA or TCQ administrative orders for the city for the last almost 30 years. So that's almost unheard of. It's normal. You'll get one or two, and then you just make a correction and move on. But these guys have run a good tight ship. So we're real proud of them.
Thanks, sir.
I was just gonna echo what Ed said. We appreciate what y'all do for good quality of water that we have here for our citizens. I know for a number of years we've been very fortunate with this, and each year we may take it for granted, but it's we appreciate the job that y'all do.
Thank you, sir.
Our water is so clean, we're gonna start bottling it and sending it up to Arkansas to sell it up there.
I mean, that'd be more good revenue for sure. I'm always told that we have one of the best tasting water here. So, I mean, I drink from the sink. So, and I have tasted water in Longview and other places, and it's not good. So.
All right. Well, we certainly thank you for standing in, and we appreciate all the hard work you guys do.
Thank you, sir. Is there any more questions?
No, I think that about sums it up. What, you got one? Go ahead.
This may be more for Ed. Will this report be on the website for any length of time at all for the public if they choose to see it? Because I was reading here that, that they have, and we certainly want them to understand it in case they have any questions about what's in our water and things like that.
Do you know how long it'll be up there? Do you have any idea?
Usually they leave it there a couple of years. So it is on the city website. You go under the utilities and then go to CCR, and then it's right there. And it should have at least 2 or 3 years listed there. Drinking Water Watch has all the chemical results. You just have to type, City of Mount Pleasant, Texas Drinking Water Watch, and it'll pull everything that they test for. Here we just show what's required for us to show, but they have the whole list in Texas Drinking Water Watch, and just type City of Mount Pleasant. So. Thank y'all.
Alrighty. Well, this is a public hearing, so if we have anyone in the public that would like to speak on this item of drinking water, feel free to come up, state your name, and address the council. All right, we have no takers, so we'll go ahead and close that item on the agenda. All right, our next item, we've already done item 9. We're going to go on to item 10. Item 10 is to hold a public hearing and consider approval of ordinance 2023-10, a request from James Arledge on behalf of ACH Construction and Propriety, LLC, for the approval of a zoning change from a general retail district to a planned development district number 3 for a townhome development and an establishing PD development regulations for the subject property on a .60 acre parcel of land, establishing the planned development regulations for the subject property on that .6 parcel of land described as Fort Highland Addition Block 10, lot part of Lot 3, .6 AC, City of Mount Pleasant, Titus County, Texas, and generally located at the northeast corner of West 17th Street and North Johnson Avenue.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, and Mr. Thatcher. And so the property is located, as you've indicated here, this is North Johnson, and this is West 17th Street, and it's a .6 acre property. And when we take a look at the zoning for the property, the current property is zoned general retail, and so you have general retail as well around here, as well as up north of the property. Northeast Texas Credit Union is located here. You have Pilgrim Bank here, dental office. You've got the Sonic Drive-In and Popeye's Chicken, I believe, over here. But the area that is to the west that we can see here is along the south of 17th Street. It's zoned commercial, but we have residential that's located here. You also have residential that's located just right across the street from the subject property. And when you continue over here into neighborhood services, you've got a doctor office, dental office. But beyond this, there's other additional residential all the way that goes down about 3 or 4 blocks, and then you have the Woodlands apartment complex as well. It's about 3 or 4 blocks away. So just gave you kind of context of the area and what's here. When we take a look at what the applicant is providing, what he's looking to do is to change the zoning to a planned development district that's going to allow for 8 single-family townhome units on the property. There's some other provisions inside the PD regulations that are in your packet that are attached to the PD ordinance. There'll be some additional, some open space, as well as some screening here with some wrought iron fence and some trees and shrubbery. And also, the one thing we need to point out is on the lot. With this request being a PD, the standards, the Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinance requires under a PD at least 1 acre for residential development. This being 0.6 acres obviously doesn't meet that requirement. However, because this is a planned development district, it is flexible zoning, so it allows for the approval through the council if they so choose to do that. And so there is a condition of approval that's listed in staff's report for that as well. I need to point that out for you. What the applicant is tending to put on the ground, as you can see here, is going to be two-story facilities with stone, brick, stucco that you can see on the depiction here for the elevations. The planned development district for this particular property, it does the request does meet the intent of the future land use plan and as well as the 2050 comprehensive plan as far as a residential use within the stated designated area. We did send notice out, 14 notices to all property owners within 200 feet. We did also put that in the newspaper as well as on the website. We did receive 2 notices back that are not for the applicant's request. Those are in your packet as well. We did take this to the Planning and Zoning Commission last week on July the 11th, and they are forwarding a recommendation of approval for the plan for the PD. This is a public hearing, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have, and the applicant is here as well.
Dave, let me ask you, if people over there said I'm within 200 feet and I didn't get a letter, what would be the reason?
I would have to say that would be the U.S. mail. We're required just to drop it in the U.S. mail. I did provide a list of those properties in your packet as well, who we sent those out to. Obviously, with us receiving some notices back, means that the mail did go out. I mean, I can't answer that question other than U.S. mail.
And sometimes people can get close. They feel like they're within 200 feet when they're really not, or they're close to it but not. And we legally send it to those that it says. So we may want to check that list and make sure that we send it to everybody that's there.
Are those just in that regular mail, or are they certified?
State just requires deposit in the regular mail.
We got 2 back opposing, and no one's anything back for it or anything.
That's correct.
So Dave, I'm looking on the concept site plan here. One bullet that I see here, it says all common areas to be maintained by HOA. So am I safe to assume that this is going to be regulated by a homeowners association?
Yes, sir, that is correct. The Planned Development District, we do have some regulations that are within the PD ordinance itself that's going to regulate the properties as well. but yes, that will be maintained by the HOA.
And so with that said, I'm assuming these are gonna be properties that are gonna be up for sale and not for rent, is that correct?
These are fee simple title for each of the properties, yes, sir.
Could you address a little bit more if you have the details? You said there'd be 8 units. How many bedrooms, and how about parking? If we're down to .6, where is the park?
Right, yes, so this is 2-story unit. You have, I believe it's 900 square feet on the bottom and, 600 square feet on the bottom and 900 square feet, for the second floor. I believe they're 2-bedroom, on this, and parking wise, there is a provision in the standards that, where you'll have one vehicle that'll be parked in the garage, that'll be, located there, and then one will be as well behind that particular property, so they'll be in tandem, plus, the parking along, the public street. Folks can park on public street.
Are there any common areas there for parking besides the 2 spaces for each townhome?
We do not have that on the concept plan.
I believe one of the concerns of one of those that opposed it was how it's gonna affect the flow of traffic if you have cars having to park on that street.
How wide is that street? Is it the standard city street width from curb to curb?
Yes, sir, that should be a standard city street, for curb to curb. Yes, sir.
Well, I'm just asking that because you know out in the Point North subdivision, when that subdivision was annexed, those streets still don't adhere to the city standards for the street widths.
Right. Yes, sir. Yeah, and I understand that, and that does happen in some cases.
Mr. Gonzalez, well, based upon, the city requirement, is there a reason for this not to pass? Based upon the city requirements, based upon the guidelines, is there a reason for this not to be approved?
That's a decision for.
No, based upon the guidelines of the city, or there any violations?
The answer is it meets our comprehensive plan and our requirements, so there's no reason that you would not.
Do we know if all the properties that are there, I know that it's been zoned and rezoned, it looks like a hodgepodge of zoning over in this little 4 or 5 street corner of the world. I mean, we've got single family, neighborhood services, general retail, commercial. I mean, and single family, there's 5, I'm looking at 5 zonings right here within 2 streets, 3 streets. So it's quite mixed use anyhow. Do we know back to his question about the width of the street, are you assuming that they are, do you know if the other existing properties that have been improved are curbed and guttered? Because, parking is one thing when there's a curb to park up against, and quite another for parking when there's not. And of course, I know this one would be curbed and guttered when it goes in, because I think it'd be a wonderful improvement to the neighborhood. I think it'd be a value add for all purposes, but I am concerned about parking on the streets. And so do we know for sure that is, I would like to know if we can know how wide exactly that street is, and do we know about the curb and guttering with the neighbor, with the adjacent and near properties?
So, I would probably have to refer that to someone who's on the street department. I believe that is curb and gutter down that street, but the one thing that I can say is, as far as standards, that since that was probably built some time ago, that probably met the standards then. Do they meet our current standards? That's the one thing I would have to take a look at. But as far as standards, I would say it would meet the standards that were adopted at that time it was constructed.
Let me just add too, that's an older part of town, and I don't think it is curbed and guttered. Looked over at my street department, and he's either got a fly or something. He's shaking his head like that. And
Yeah, you can come up and speak in front of the mic, Dad. Just hold it down there.
Okay, so the one in Pilgrim Bank right there, that's curbed and gutter, cause I mow that lot with the, mower. The one that's in front of the yellow box, which is that Johnson Street right there or whatever that one right there? That is not curbed and gutter, that is not curbed and gutter, but that's gonna be the entrance, so, there's a couple of things we could do on this concept plan to even allow parking, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Can you put that other, picture on there? So, where you have the fence that's on the back property next to that right there. So I was gonna put, a fence along that back line there, and then, possibly, if we needed more parking, we could utilize some of that space, isn't that correct? Right in there, yeah.
We'd have to take the width of that needs to be a minute.
Right here, going up, Johnson, it's no curb gutter, but now 17th, like you said, going around, it is curb gutter going up.
But James, you are gonna curb and gutter yours will be curbed and guttered up Johnson. Yeah. And besides that, it's a plan development. We get to pick the standard. We get to choose the standard with you. And if we need a higher standard, we tell you we need the higher standard.
And David, is there any reason why on that north property line it's gonna be a fence, why can't we take concrete up to the bottom of the fence so it extends that back parking area so they can have more space to park additional vehicles? Because, if you ever have to get in there for any kind of utilities, you can always bust up the concrete and then put it back, so it's not a permanent structure. So is there any reason why that can't be done?
There's no reason why that couldn't be done. The objective was to provide some screening for the residents from the other businesses.
And the screening is important, but one of the things I was gonna say is we need to be careful because, it's in an older part of town and we have a lot of infill house building. We don't put those onus requirements on those guys you gotta curb and gutter the whole street because of that. And so, we wouldn't put that on him. Now, if his lot went straight up, we may have him curb and gutter, but as far as having parking, if you've got 2 parking spaces for 2 cars off the street, then that meets the requirement. So to have him provide more than that is onerous, because most of us don't provide more than that. People come see us park on the street at my house, kind of thing.
One thing, then probably have to ask the applicant on this, but there is another solution possibly, and it's called what we call niche parking, where you can come into this portion of the right-of-way exactly and come inside, and then you have some parallel parking. Still, we dedicate that for city right-of-way, and then that would provide some additional parking there, depending how long that is. Could be 3 or 4 spaces possibly, but that's up to the applicant and obviously council at their discretion.
And just so we're clear on that, though, that's not overnight parking. That would be daytime only, okay, guest parking, that type deal, correct?
That is correct, yes, sir.
It don't appear to me to be any different than it is anywhere in town where you've got X amount of parking spaces, and if you have 2 or 3 guests come, they park on the street to come into your house, or your home or business or whatever.
But
how can we require them to, on that niche parking, to say you can't stay overnight when they can park on other streets overnight?
The intention of that would be not for overnight. If you have a guest who's going to stay overnight, then obviously, we can enforce that as a city because it's public right away. But I believe the intent is for guests.
Can't the property owner put up a sign that says guest parking only? That's his property. Or the HOA, or put up a sign, hey, that's their, and it be in the HOA, that the HOA knows, hey, that parking is for visitors only of that residence.
That would be signage that I believe that we'd have to go through council, see if you would like to have that there, but it's unenforceable on our end of it. But, you know, it's certainly something that if the applicant would like to do that and it's approved by council, I think that's an option.
So you're saying that if we put an eyebrow, I call them eyebrows, a little thing to park 2 or 3 cars like that, that's on their private property, that's not city right away, it's dedicated to the city, because I thought in most subdivisions that I'm aware of, that's dedicated to the city as like the street.
Right, I would say we would have that dedicated to the city as street, yes.
Well, doesn't the city already, in most places, again, using other locations, don't you already have an easement anyway beyond the curb?
Yes, sir, typically that would be 10 feet.
Chief, you had some? Come on up.
While the chief's coming though, back to the streets and the width, and I realize it's an older neighborhood, and again, I think this would be an improvement to the area in the neighborhood. But, and I don't know what triggers this. I do know that, say, 15 years ago or so, my mother-in-law, and I just know this from a personal example, she had lived on First Street since the mid-60s, and they came back and required her to curb and gutter her vacant lot next to her house at some point. And by the way, she paid for it. That's the other thing, people going forward. So if we did go back, the reason I was actually hoping you were going to tell me that the curb and gutter was already in place all around the properties, because my still concern is on, and I'm not trying to make something I'm just clearing it up, okay, for future, on North Johnson, and he intends to curb and gutter or do the eyebrow or whatever. But then you have to go back later, and we do choose that road, that street may not be any wider, and if it's harder to parallel park and be out of the street traffic if there's a curb. You can't even cheat up on the grass when it becomes curbed. So that put me back to the width of the street, and if we ever, what would ever trigger us to demand that these other property owners curb and gutter? Because Dixie, she didn't want to curb and gutter her vacant lot, but she had to. So what triggers that? I don't know. What triggers an older neighborhood having to be curbed and guttered?
A lot of times in the older parts of cities in Texas, you'll have, if you have ditches, the pavement is sometimes 20 feet wide. And curb and gutter can go up to 24 feet or 28 feet back to back. We in the city have just recently set a standard that ought to be 31 feet back to back, even in a residential area. And but that's going forward. So you got all these older places, and you usually don't. It's kind of onerous to go back and make the older places change. Like a property owner, you got to do this. The city council has a lot of authority and can do that, but we usually don't do that. Now in this situation, where Mr. Arledge is evidently he's going to curb and gutter up past his property or whatever on that corner, but not all the way up to the end of the street, which would be normal. The other part of it is he probably, I don't know, you're not going to curb and gutter the other side of the street for the other property up there, right? It's just on your side. See, and that's usually what happens. If the city requires that, normally then the city would be prepared to pay for the other half. And if you want them to go up, you'd end up paying for all of it. And so you kind of got to get all the property owners working at the same time to get it all curbed and guttered. Possibly your mother-in-law was on a curb and gutter street except for that one lot, or what, I don't know. But usually it's a little heavy-handed to go in and make one person sitting there, now you got to curb and gutter that, when they're not planning on doing anything with it. If you're building something, then you have them curb and gutter, put a sidewalk in it maybe or whatever. But so we got to be real careful that we don't start something we really don't want to get into. And I'm gonna assume that in your pre-development conferences and stuff, you and the chief talked about fire and everything. So all of that's been worked out. I'm not thinking we're going to have a surprise here, are we, tonight?
Well, sort of. Whenever we've talked about this, we have a fire lane on the back side. And we didn't require one on the front side because we can access it from the street. But now if you line cars up along that, now we got to jump over the cars to get to the fire. So having that little niche or eyebrow would not be advantageous to us. Yeah, it's not really about the hydrant location, it's when we set the truck in the front, is now we gotta pull the hoses and the people over the truck. I know there's one at 17th and, Jefferson. I think there's one at that intersection of Johnson and 17th, I believe.
In effect, it's a fire lane.
Yes, that's kinda what we agreed on, is we have the street that can serve as a fire lane, but if we put the cars between the street and the building, then that's a problem.
Thank you, Chief. We appreciate that.
You're good with the back parking lot as far as your fire lane on the back, is that correct?
Yes, because it'll be marked, even if, we'll have 25 feet, even if there's parked cars up on the north side. As long as we've got our fire lane, we're good.
So back to my, again, I'm not trying to but I'm just not getting clarity on my question. So I don't mind asking it somewhat of a third time. On that, on the west side, across the street, mainly on Johnson, those single-family dwellings there, if they're not curb and guttered, and they are ever made to curb and gutter, and he's got curb and gutter, it's gonna be a very narrow street. And if people are tending to park there, parallel park, it's gonna, I would like to know how wide that street is. I know it's an old street. I'm aware of it. And I don't think it's as wide as our newer streets are. I'm almost sure it's not. I've actually been on that street where I had to pull over into a grass of a yard just a little bit to make clearance when I'm meeting a car. So I'm not trying. It's kind of like this: once the bell gets rung, it's rung. And I hope we're able to find a way to let something like this happen. I just want to address this concern the best we can and put it behind us for the future of the people that do live there and travel those streets, you know, to and from home, and need to do it safely. And if a fire truck needs to get down the street, again, as long as there's no curb and gutter, you can pull up in their yard. I don't think they'll like it, but you could get over. But if it gets curb and guttered, you don't have as much wiggle room.
Sherry, for what it's worth, I don't know the particulars, but the surveyor's showing that to be a 50-foot right-of-way on North Johnson and on West 17th, 50-foot right-of-way. So he got it somewhere. That's the only comment I can make, but it's on your survey there.
That'd be about a 30-foot.
That would be 30 with 10 on both sides of the flank, you know, that you said you have. So it is 50 foot there in that easement.
That's what the surveyor is showing right there. That's all I can speak to that.
I just scaled it. It scales 30 feet from road edge to road to edge to road. That's what it scales.
And I'm looking on the Google map right now, and from 17th Street to 18th Street, that is the only section of Johnson Street that is not completely curbed and guttered. The rest of the street south of that and north of that, all the way to the hospital, is completely curbed and guttered all the way. So it looks like Northeast Texas Credit Union did not curb their portion when they built at that location on either side of their property. And then on the west side where this single-family home is, of course, they're not curbed on the south or east side of their property.
All righty. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. All righty. Do we have any further questions?
Well, just for clarity, though, just one thing on the rear parking, the way you've got it currently sized, it will have one vehicle in the garage, and there's only enough space for one to park behind the closed garage door. Okay. With enough room to back out and.
Yeah, it meets the requirement for backing up 24 feet.
So, but one other thing though, because I'm in a subdivision with the HOA, and this is just from experience. We need to make sure, or they need to make sure, I'm just to prevent something down the road in the HOH restrictions, and they need to make sure that they spell out, cross the Ts and dot the Is, that there is no additional parking beyond that, because they're buying their property, and they're gonna say, well, hey, that's my property all the way to the back of that fence. You know, if you draw a straight line, that's so you don't want them putting cars back there, because then they're gonna block the view, the ability for the other cars on the far end to be able to get in and out.
And I appreciate that, and with that being a fire lane, it will be striped as fire lane.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I think it needs to be, I realize there's a fire lane there, but I see people parking on the fire lane all the time, and that's a permanent residence. So people are gonna ignore that. I'm telling you, it'd be better to also have it in your HOA bylaws and restrictions, because if you don't, then it's gonna just have to be the city dealing with it. But the HOA will help with that if you do that. I'm just, from experience is all I'm telling you.
Okay.
James, how many square feet will each unit, are they all gonna be pretty close to the same? I mean, what roughly, how much living area in each unit? Each, two bedrooms? Do you have, and I know you're a builder, if things go as you hope they do with no, unexpected expenses, what would be an average retail price that you would probably ask for each unit? Well, these are high-end units. These are not, okay.
Bedroom's gonna be upstairs. Even if I could afford it, I wouldn't be able.
Alrighty. Okay, this is part of this item on the agenda is a public hearing. So if anyone else in the public that would like to speak on this item, please come up and address us at this time. Okay, we have no takers on that. We'll close the public hearing section of this item and open the floor for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the donor check.
I'll second that.
Have a motion made by Councilman Adams, second by Councilman Chappelle. Madam Secretary, record a vote, please.
Aye.
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 Vote is unanimous. We'll now close that item on the agenda. This time we'll go on to item 11. Item 11 is discussion and consider a request from Dr. Keaton Shaw on behalf of DK Skyrise LLC for the approval of a final plat for the Skyrise Villas addition, formerly North Ridge Villas, being a tract of land located in the Berry Merchant Survey, abstract number 358, Titus County, Texas, and in the city of Mount Pleasant, and being all of called a 6.35 acre tract one, that's tract one, and all of called 1.45 acre tract two, conveyed to DK Skyrise LLC in a deed known as instrument number 20210595 of the public records of Titus County, Texas, and generally located south of Interstate 30 between North Jefferson Avenue and Industrial Road in the city of Mount Pleasant, Texas.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. And once again, this is, you're familiar with this. You should be familiar with this. This is a final plat. This came to you last year in October as a preliminary plat, was approved to move forward through the site plan phase. This is adjacent to the Northridge Church, which is located here. And you've got I-30 located north of here, 271, and Industrial Boulevard over this way, and this is Washington Street. The developer is looking to construct a two-phase development here for 132 apartment units. Phase one, he wants to get started pretty quick. You'll have 60 units for phase one. They'll come in with phase two a little bit later on once phase one is complete. We did take a look at the requirements on this, and it does meet all the requirements for subdivision regulations, and staff will recommend approval. This did go before the Planning and Zoning Commission as well on July 11th, and they are forwarding a recommendation of approval. Available for any questions.
So David, do they have a plan for water mitigation?
For water,
That's part of the flood zone right there. Have they determined what they're gonna do to rectify that problem?
yes, sir. And that's one of the reasons this came to you in October. That was kind of the slowdown, I guess, so to speak, for the site plan, is that we were waiting for the engineering to come through for this site, and they have taken a look at that and have rectified that problem.
David, say again, you said but what, phase one, and how many units, and then what's in phase two?
Phase one has 72 units, I misspoke. Phase two has 60 units, so for a total of 132 for the full development.
And David, what standards is this project gonna be held to as far as the build and materials, like the previous, project?
Yep. So when the applicant submitted their site plan, they're showing a stone and stucco build on this, I think with some brick accents as well. So this will be a very nice product that'll be sitting on the ground.
Are these gonna be any government subsidized, or are these just, individual owned, and what's the price on them? Do we know what they're gonna rent for? Is it 1, 2, and 3 bedroom?
They do have primarily 1 and 2 bedroom, but they do have some 3 bedroom, as far as the amount, I don't know what the rents will be on this.
Is it to do with any low-income housing?
This would not be low-income housing, no, sir.
David, have they provided us with any kind of renderings of what this is gonna look like?
Yes, sir. That was part of the site plan. I probably should have included that in here since that was approved administratively. I'll remember to do that next time.
Does this have a swimming pool and all? I don't remember. I know it's been a while since I think they came and made a presentation one night, didn't they? At a council meeting back a year or so ago.
Yes, sir. They have some amenities. They have an amenity center. They also have a pool as well, playground area, and
Exercise clubhouse included.
yes, sir. A clubhouse will be included with that part of the amenities.
We had no objections. No one opposed it. Mail back in.
This being a plat, we don't mail out any notices for this. Yes, sir.
I'm assuming no one was here for the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting that night. I'm assuming.
That is correct.
Hey, Dave, and make sure I look at this right. So are they gonna basically have 3 points of entry and access, off the Service Road, Burton Road, off Gage Avenue, and off Washington Avenue?
I don't believe there's entry on Washington. Egress and is going to be off of Gage Avenue and Burton Road.
All right, do we have any further questions? Okay, we'll open the floor for a motion on this item.
I'll move approval of final plat.
I'll second that.
We have a motion made by Councilman Adams, second by Councilman Dale. Madam Secretary, record a vote, please.
Aye.
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 Vote is unanimous. We'll now close that item on the agenda. Our next item is our public comments. At this time, if you have anything that you would like to come up and address the council with, please state your name and address and direct your concerns to the council.
I want to share just a little bit. I met a gentleman a few days ago. He was in town. He lives down around Lone Star, somewhere down there, and another young man that grew up here. He was there, and we were visiting, and just Sherry, tell me what's going on. City council, typical questions that I'm sure most of us get from time to time when we're in the community. And he said, "What have you learned?" And I said, "Well, I've learned a lot." I said, and it's taken a while to really to understand how cities work, and we have a big city here, and we have a lot of industry here, and we have a lot of great people. We have a lot of opportunity. We have a lot of aggressive people that want to see things happen, and I'm one of those. I want to see us grow and be an exemplary city, for many reasons. and hopefully still maintaining our country-friendly, loving, neighborly attitudes and consider those that are already here. But I did share with them that, and I wanted to share this with the public. I'm 61 years of age, and if the Lord lets me live a few more years, I might bust 70 or 80. Who knows? You know how long we'll all live. And some of the things that we're talking about and doing now, I will see completed, and some things I won't. You know, we talk about 5 year, 10 year, 20 years down the road, because you do have to plan. And boy, don't 10 years come around quick when you get our age. I mean, boom. And so, long story short, one of the things I shared, and I want to tell all the public this as much as I can. When we're looking at our future, we have a lot of assets here still. We've had a lot of things in the past that's gotten us to this point. Years ago, when John B. Stevens, those guys were wildcatting Talco, here came the oil, here come the refinery, and that was great jobs and helped us move forward. And then along came Lumina or TU needing the coal mine, the lignite, and boom, and then we got the lakes and we got all that fresh water, and then that came and went. Boy, that 40 years went by fairly quickly, didn't it, for any of us that kind of remember the 70s? And so here we are again. Now, in the meantime, we've had some wonderful local entrepreneurs build some ground-up bootstrap businesses here, and I'm so grateful for them. And of course, Pilgrims it's hard to put into words the value that Pilgrims and that processing plant brings to the whole community, the area, and actually the surrounding towns. With that said, I've learned, and I think everyone listening to pay attention, fresh water, we have an abundance of it. We were talking about how good it is tonight, and we do have great water. But I've learned on the other end of it, for water we use, we got to do something with it, which includes all these sewer plants, which we voted tonight, a second payment on upgrading the sewer plant we have now. And this older gentleman who has been involved in this sort of thing in the past with other cities, he said, ma'am, he said, I'm just sharing with you what a friend and neighbor up the road, you know, we're talking about just in a casual conversation. He said, I agree with you. He said, I'm old and gray. He said, if you want to help the next generation, he said, you focus on that water and the use of that water and the processing and the disposal of the water. The biggest thing that I've learned in the big grand scheme of things, and I know a lot of people know a lot more than I do, and some don't know as much, is it's the sewer issues, the discharge and the treatment and discharge of the water. It's not just what we want to do, it's what we're allowed to do, okay? So we have to take that in consideration. We just got a $60 million bond, but about 40 of it, more or less, to upgrade our sewer facilities now. With the efforts that the IDC is making, and I appreciate their efforts to try to attract new businesses here, we still have to focus on those sewer concerns, and we can quickly already use, if we're not careful, commit to be using what we think is going to last us 20, 30 years, so y'all's kiddos or grandkids can make these decisions. If we're not careful, we're going to be at capacity before we ever get halfway paid for or there, and it takes years to do these sewer plants. So I want us all as a community, when we're talking about what the Lord's blessed us with, let's remember, if we don't use this new fresh water, I learned that at a meeting 2 or 3 months ago with the guys out at the lake. There's so much to learn, and there's such big decisions. And I know we all I feel a burden to try to get it right for the next generation. I'm going to be okay. We're going to mostly be okay. But I want to look for the future. I'm not sure that we don't need to start now planning for another sewer plant or an expansion or industrializing it or something. I think we're going to be held back if we don't do that. I think our next best asset is our water, but we need to be able to use it. Otherwise, we could lose it to bigger cities like Dallas, and they did tell us, and in closing, I think this is a big point. If we have a kind of a contract and a plan to use our water, and we have an abundance out at our lakes, thank the Lord, we've got a lot of water. If we sort of have a plan for that water, it will be harder for Dallas to come and suck it out of our lake, and once they get their rights to it, we won't get it back, okay? So if I don't know if it's the thing to do, but I want to say to the community and the public and everybody paying attention, I think we should consider finishing what we started, because that's gonna get us down the road the next 5 or 10 years, but if we're gonna take care of this next generation here, we're gonna have to do something, and I wanna be able to use and keep our water, but we have to be able to process it and discharge it. And again, that is not just, we can't just do it because we want to. We have to have regulations with the state, and it's not easy, it's expensive, it's a long process. So thank you for letting me speak tonight during public comments. I'm saying to that as a citizen, as a city councilwoman, to all of us. So let's just, I think the whole community needs to decide if we wanna go into debt again with another 30-year bond with the intention of upgrading our sewer facilities even further so that we can invite all these industries to come and handle them and not have to worry about, are they gonna overload us and we can't handle it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman. That was excellent put. That's something that's mandatory for our growth, so I certainly agree with you on that. Okay, at this time, do we have anyone, again, that, before we close this out, that wanted to speak in public comment?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Epiphany Johnson. I want to thank all the board members for allowing people within the community like myself to be a part of this meeting and to be able to voice our opinions and concerns about what's going on in the community. As many of you may know, and for the ones that are not aware, there has been ongoing issues in the Oakland Park on the west side of town, starting with the Zumba on the basketball court being the first issue. This has been addressed and hopefully taken care of, and I'm here today to assure myself and a lot of people that are in the crowd won't be approached, bothered, harmed, or bothered by these selfish acts with this lady interfering with the kids that are trying to perfect their crafts and polish their skills with basketball. The second issue I would like to address is the pavilion at the park. I am trying to understand how the pavilion being rented out 3 days out of the week for 2 hours in the evening to the same individual that caused the first issue that I previously spoke about. The same individual that has made false accusations on the elders who has been sitting under the pavilion for 10 years just to enjoy themselves. The park is supposed to be an enjoyable place, right? How can it be enjoyable when the same lady has spread rumors saying these innocent individuals are gambling and selling drugs? The park is supposed to be a place of peace, fun, and respectful games. And due to this certain individual, the park has shifted to be the total opposite. I am hoping today that you are not only seeing all of these individuals here, but I hope you're hearing us. What can be done about this? How will you make the park a safe place for the kids and elders or people that just want to come sit and enjoy the park without disrespect, dirty looks, arrogance, and bad behaviors from this Zumba lady?
All right,
Thank you.
Mayor and council, we are aware of that situation. As soon as we opened the basketball pavilion, we had an individual who does what's it called, Roomba? A Roomba? Anyway, it's an exercise class that I don't participate with, and
oh yes, it is called Zumba, and I just kind of want to make everyone aware that it's not a racial thing. It's not about Zumba, because I personally like Zumba for my own workout purposes, but it's about the respect for the kids. It's about respect for the community. You really don't see anyone going to the tennis court playing soccer. You don't see anyone going down the slide dribbling basketball. So I feel like the basketball court is simply for the basketball court. As the pavilion goes, there's been individuals being under the pavilion just enjoying themselves, watching their grandkids. So for her to be able to come and rent that out 3 days a week and specifically telling these individuals, go get in the grass, I feel like that's really rude, and that's really causing a problem and an uproar within the community with the park. So I just want to know how you guys felt about it, and if there was something that can be done about it.
Mayor and council, I've talked with Ricky about it. We do have plan put together to take care of these issues, and we'll let you know what we're doing as we just get them together, and we'll also communicate them to the community.
Again, yeah, I'm also aware. I'm very aware of the situation over there. I've went out there on a couple occasions. I think we rectified the issue as far as the basketball court is concerned. It's I'm aware it's two different classes. I think it's a Zumba class, and then there's another group that comes out. Yeah, you have to press that button and hold it down.
They're on the court now.
Okay, you have to state your name, Miss.
My name is Chandra Norman, and the Kinziella group is on the court now. They've been coming out there every day still. And the sign, we showed them the sign the other day. We showed them the sign that was up, but she said, they said give them 10 more minutes. Now it's another group out there that's been out there for the last couple of days, still on the court.
So what makes this court any different than any other court? So why are we holding classes in that court versus any other class? So my question is, why can't they do, I know it's covered, yeah, but I mean, it's like she said, it's a basketball court, right? So it's not being served for its purpose. I mean, we built it for the purpose of basketball, for the community to be able to play basketball. Some of those classes, I don't see why they can't be held just on nice, clean-cut grass. They have mats and stuff, or a parking lot that's not being occupied by vehicles. So are we as a city, because I didn't know this, we're renting the basketball court out for them to have these classes, or they're just taking it upon themselves to have these classes? What are we doing there?
Go ahead, Rick.
So basically they are doing this on their own. We've since, as the young lady stated, we put signage up stating that the basketball court is only to be used for basketball activities. And so how we rectify that with someone just doing that themselves, I'm not sure.
Chief, you want to come talk about what you're going to do about it?
No, I hate that it comes to this, but one thing you might do, it might take away from the aesthetics, but put a chain link fence around the whole thing and lock the gate, and then, or put it, I don't know. I don't understand why these individuals think they can take it upon themselves to take full ownership of the whole court. That's a shared piece of property that's designed to be used for basketball. Now, I can understand maybe sometimes you can hold other events and there for, when you're having other things, but from day to day, it's there for the purpose of basketball, for the community to use that for basketball. These other groups, they can go to the Civic Center or wherever. I don't know. They don't need to be using that for that purpose. Like you said, I agree with the folks here that are here in support of it being a basketball court. That's what it is.
Let me just add to that one little quick. What would be the difference in going over and doing the same thing on our tennis courts at Dalewood? Just sitting down there instead of letting the people play tennis there. They decide they want to do their different activities there on the tennis courts where, that's for tennis. What would be the difference?
These kind of activities have been going on for as long as I've been in this business. Like we get skateboarders on the tennis courts and rollerblades and bicycles, and they mark up the stuff. We get cars. We did the basketball in Heritage Park and did the court, and the car got on, did some wheelies on it. We've had a car get on this basketball court and pull it around, and has damaged some of that surface. We've got to get that redone. The reason they want to be there is because it's brand new and it's smooth and it's covered, and they want to go where the newness is. The other part of it is it's not just people getting together. This is a business. This lady charges people so she's running her business there, and so there's some things we can do. Whether they go there like they're there tonight, they've been talked to several times. All we can do is if somebody calls me, for example, they've called me on the weekend, said they're there. I call Ricky and say, you go take care of it, and he goes over and runs them off, and then later on they come back, that kind of thing. So, but there's some rules we can put in place. Of course, putting a chain link fence around it, you still got to have walk-in traffic, and they'll walk in and do it. So what we're proposing is to bring an ordinance with you, or some policies that we say you know, if you want to rent a facility like the pavilion, we do rent that for birthday parties or whatever. We need to decide if we want to allow somebody to rent the pavilion and then have a for-profit use of it or not. So we can have that in our policies. The other thing we can do is say, because we heard she told the gentleman that they were there, we've got it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the next year kind of thing. Well, we don't rent it out for a year at a time, and we'll have a thing saying you can only rent it out one or two times. You're on a birthday party, you only have a birthday once a year. You maybe do it twice a month or something. But we'll put the limit of times they can be there per month, and we won't let them rent it for all week. We get into that in the sports where coaches want to have practice or baseball, soccer, football, and they'll rent one field for 3 or 4 days for a year kind of thing, and we just can't do that. So Ricky is very up on this kind of problem and has dealt with it in other cities, and as I have, and so we're going to try to come to you. It'll be you all that'll decide what you want to do, but we'll put together a policy, and then we'll have it in there that the police chief has to go out and run them off.
Well, that's what I was my next question was, okay, we can put an ordinance in place all day long, but how is it going to be enforced? That's the question. How are we going to enforce it? You can have something on a piece of paper all day long.
Come on, Chief.
But
come on up.
It's like paying that Yakimo or whatever it is, where you can't keep something pops up over here, and they're running all the time.
So I do think if you enact a policy, and I would say an ordinance, right? Then we may have at our disposal a trespass, or we could trespass somebody from a park for use if they violate the city ordinance. And so that would, for me, probably be the first step we would take, would be to trespass somebody from the city parks. Usually those take place for a year. So if they violate the ordinance, since there's not a criminal attachment to that ordinance for policy on use, typically, then we would start with the trespass. And then should they continue to violate it, then they'd be arrested for trespassing.
And I'm assuming the initial trespass would be on the individual constructing the class, right? Not the individuals participating, because they're just there because she said, hey, meet me at the basketball courts over in Oaklawn.
Well, again, it'd be dependent on what the ordinance says that is enacted. So
I will say this. So as a business owner myself, I find it bad that somebody would utilize a piece of property that everybody in here pays for a for-profit endeavor, personal gain, that is a piece of taxpayer property. Okay. So in the same sense, so it's same things, and I've dealt with it for years at my restaurant, and I don't have it now, but in my future endeavors. We have people come in off the interstate selling product. My first question to them is, did you go to the city and get a permit for that? And they go, well, no. Okay, I did. I'm here because I've got a permit to operate my business. You're infringing on my time and my property without paying the taxes and without paying the permits that we have to pay. It's part of doing business. And if you don't want to do the part of it that pays for the facilities, then don't take the money. So actually I find it offensive that somebody's doing something for profit. So bring an ordinance to us, and I'd ask just the community to please bear with us. When things like this pop up, it's not something that we can just snap our fingers and make it go away. We apologize that that's the way it is. It takes time for government to enact some rules that help us, that we can help you as a community or as citizens that pay for these deals. Sometimes it takes us time that we wish we could make it faster, but it'll just take us a little time. But every time one of these little things pops up, and it just seems like sometimes it, like he said, it's kind of like whack-a-mole. You like a little game, it pops up and you have to knock it down and start over again, So Anyway, so we'll get to work on it. I apologize that's taking place. I apologize from a business standpoint. I apologize that somebody is abusing our facilities that way. That's abuse. It's not the common standard of business owners. It's not the common courtesy of business owners. And if you're a business owner like that, we don't want you doing business here, period.
Let me just add, it's a shame that we have to do this kind of stuff. You know, you think people out here would just automatically do the right thing, but anymore you can't take that for granted and can't think that that's the case, because you're only fooling yourself when you do. And I know a lot of time we come back and go, you know, we're regulating everything, but it's a shame that you have to do this, and it just won't be at Oaklawn Park. It'll be at all the parks in the city. And I'm sure there's times when people go to the tennis courts or someone out there riding their whatever they do, the kids do now on the tennis court when someone's ready to play tennis, and that's what it's designed for, is to play tennis, not to sit there and play hopscotch on. But it's a shame that we get to the situation that we're in to have to apparently look at this and make an ordinance to where people have to abide by it. But we're definitely there.
So Ed, on this ordinance, can we make sure that it includes a little bit of everything, that a pavilion is made to be used as a pavilion, a basketball court's a basketball court, a tennis court, a baseball field or softball field is, you know, et cetera. And then the second question is how quick can you get that to us so we can get it voted in?
We've been aware of this for the last maybe 3 weeks or so since it's been opened, and we've been dealing with it. I told Ricky and also Ms. Johnson that we planned on talking about it tonight. I was going to bring it up under my thing, but appreciate it bringing it up, just to make sure we had y'all's direction, because we talked about some of the things we can do, and we can do the ordinance and put it in. Just to point out, though, for example, at the Civic Center and other places I've been, people will rent it and then come in and sell things. You know, it's a for-profit thing, run a little business out of that kind of thing. And they do that from time to time. And so we have to be very specific about what we're doing in this ordinance to see if that's what we want to do. Again, other businesses have overhead and build a building, do whatever, and so when they come in and they start using it every Saturday or every kind of thing, that's when we got to get some limit that amount that they can rent it. So we are working on it. We'll bring it to you probably maybe in 2 weeks or maybe the next meeting. But we'll have a ordinance here, then we'll have Ricky go through it and Chief and show you what we do. Now, again, enforcing it, it's like you say, you come to a meeting and we're all here and they're out there taking up the space, so it'll be a challenge for a while.
All right, do we have anyone else?
They're in Dallas, the Rangers.
You'll have to hold it down.
Hold it while I talk. So I feel like I'm DJing. Yeah, we did a lot of crying and whining. Y'all all know about getting that part. And I just want to commend y'all for the great job y'all did. But we weren't expecting it to be that bad. It's bad. We like it. We love it. And as far as that, with them playing, with them dancing on the basketball court, they just, even when you playing on it, if they're already there, they feel like they can just stay there while the kids are playing. I've watched it and witnessed it myself. So I like what y'all saying about the proposal to get that straightened out. But I got one more little gripe. We need some bleachers. We need some bleachers because, I mean, you know, like you got kids, like if you go up to Heritage, you'll see how many people just come to watch them play. You know what I'm saying? There's no bleachers over there. We need like at least 4 sets of bleachers over there, and then everything else is perfect. You know what I'm saying? And but I mainly want to come thank y'all for keeping y'all words on. Y'all told us a couple of years ago, just give it time, and boy, we was on him. so I know he tired, but But yeah, we could get some bleachers. I ain't gonna even complain about no water and no restroom right now. I just stick to complaining about the bleachers. Thank you.
Ricky, could you get those bleachers in?
All right, Rick. That's on you, buddy. All right, do we have anyone else? Okay.
Okay, so I need to know, and the people that sits out there under the pavilion wants to know. She told them the other day she's renting for the rest of the month of July. Is that true?
Ricky,
And
do
I
you
thought
have any?
also, shouldn't the city have like reserved, if it's reserved already, like the spot?
Ricky his people will usually put a paper up on a post or something saying this is reserved from 2 to 4 or whatever. They'll also should come with paper say it's reserved because they paid for it. And we do rent the pavilion out for like birthday parties or a cookout or family cookout or that kind of thing. Ricky, does she have it for a month?
So she has on a weekly basis. So she just came in, I believe, Friday of last week to rent it for this week. So that's not a true statement that she has it a month at a time.
Well, could we tell her next time she comes in that no more? I mean, she can only have it a couple of times a month and just don't rent it to her anymore.
If that's the direction, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Out of curiosity, how much is it rent for?
$25 for 2 hours, $50 for 4 hours, $75 for all day.
And that's for no nonprofit folks, just people wanting to have a party.
Non-profit is $15 for 2 hours, $30 for 4 hours, and $60 for all day.
Do we even, I'm just asking, do we even need to allow a for-profit anything? I mean, now that this has come up, I never had thought about it, but maybe we just don't need to have that available.
Well, because I have, for example, a scholarship fund that I plan to do for the next, and it's for profit. It's not for me, but it's to develop a certain amount of money to give to children at the Juneteenth. That's correct. Okay, but I haven't developed it yet. So that's what I'm saying. They need to be careful before you push it too far.
So basically, in our ordinance, our rental agreements, it doesn't have language that says you can do something or you cannot, basically. And so that's why we're where we're at, I guess.
Well, like we said, the ordinances need to be updated, and so we'll handle it.
Make sure you involve Carrie in the discussion so we don't do something illegal.
Hey, and so when someone rents the pavilion, Ricky, didn't you say they're given a piece of paper or a slip to show that they're the ones currently renting the facility?
That's correct.
So then when that individual's on site, they need to make sure they have that voucher or that piece of paper with them to show proof. Hey, I'm currently allowed to be here, right?
Typically, they have a copy of it, and we also post one on the pavilion. And so, and we encourage them to have that with them in case there's an issue, then they can show proof that they've paid for that space.
And so the one you post on the pavilion, is it in a form that cannot be altered?
It's just the rental form that they fill out here. They just make a copy of it.
Yeah, but I mean, is it in a form where it can't be handwritten or manipulated? It needs to be in a form to where it was printed or something showing that, hey, so-and-so is renting today between 2 and 4, and not that it was handwritten in because somebody can come in there and pencil whip something.
Ricky.
The only thing that's handwritten on there is their signature. It's typed in right here at the front desk, or whoever does it.
So if someone rents a pavilion, say they rent it for Thursday, we notify Parks. It is a typed letter that says this pavilion is reserved for so-and-so whether it's gonna give the time, if it's an all-day event, it's gonna have all day, and it's gonna have their name on there. There's no way for them to alter it other than to mark something out, because it is, the whole paper is typed.
Candace, if it says all day, what's the time limit on it?
To midnight, because on their document that they sign, that they give us, has the times on there.
We keep the park open till midnight?
All our parks are closed at midnight and open up at 5:30 a.m. I guess.
I just don't know that we want,
That's, all right. I think you opened up a whole nother can of worms. Because that doesn't even sound right, that you can be in the park from 5:30 in the morning back to midnight.
Okay. Okay.
But what I'm saying is, you also know that when school is out in May, you know, juvenile delinquency, and the kids are out of school, and all the activities that we've had in these parks over the last year, from the sports complex, and if you just think about what you just said, 5:30 a.m. in the morning to 12 a.m. Look at that time slot. Why would anybody need to be in that park that time of night like that? Why would somebody need to be in the park at 5? Why? If you rent it for that length, I think we're going to have to go back and think about the times, the time changes and how things change over time. Because we normally think if somebody's going to rent the park, they're rented from like 8 to 7, or 8 to 9. You're not thinking that somebody's going to be renting the park from 5 a.m. in the morning till midnight.
Let's don't have an all-day rental. It's still every 2 hours you pay a certain fee, and if they want till midnight, they can pay till midnight.
You're gonna have to mash that button and hold it down the whole time.
Okay, well, the way that works, first of all, by it being summertime, you got kids that might want to come out. When we say kids, you know, I'm 65 years old, so if they 16 or 17, they might want to come out at 9 to 11 and play. Then you got other things that might, like the ladies that's here, old people that's here, right here, they go out there, they've been going out there for 5 years. They play dominoes under the pavilion at the table, and they have their own little thing going. They're not doing nothing illegal. They just playing dominoes. You know, I mean, they'll play hours because there's 7 or 8 of them. You know what I'm saying? And it's for, so I mean, the park should be open all day because everybody, this man might work swing shift, he might work night shift, he might work day shift. You know, I mean, and it ain't been a problem. I mean, that's just the only problem. As far as that, for years, we haven't really had any bad problems in the park. You know what I'm saying? And it's the manner and the way the young lady presented this situation to make it come to here, you know, because common sense should tell you some things, like doing dance routines on the court, and that's cool. But when if one person come to play basketball, you should move out of respect. But they don't if 10 people come. So that's why it end up here. You see what I'm saying? It has the curfew is cool. We hadn't had a situation over there since the curfew been 12 o'clock at night. You know what I'm saying? And you got to understand, it's 106, 108 degrees, heat advisory and everything at 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 o'clock. So a lot of the kids now, they start coming out at 8. I watched them, young basketball players from the high school and everybody. They come out around 8, 8:30 and play some good evening basketball. You know what I'm saying? So I just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah, I think it was more so on the rental. I think it was more or less on the rental. Hold on, Jerry. Hold on. I started addressing. Hold on. I was saying, as far as you saying, there's no problem with the curfew. The 5:30 to midnight is the park opening time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we saying is renting someone renting it from 5:30 to midnight.
Oh, yeah, no,
that,
no,
that's
no,
not,
no.
that-
I
that's
don't
not
think
the-
nobody
no,
gonna try to rent it that long.
That's what.
I don't
kinda
think
getting
nobody gonna try to rent it that long, but I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, but it's not a big issue, and we're not trying to make it a big issue. We just want to understand it. Everybody be on the same page without any situations, you know, because I know I can't go to that sports complex and get on that soccer field or nothing and start playing football. Bring me a 7-on-7 team out there and start playing football and reserve it several days and several hours a day. No, and I wouldn't even think like that because out of respect of what it's there for. Thank you.
I just want to make sure my standpoint on it is this. I don't want somebody running a business in our parks 2 or 3 days a week. That's my deal. If you're there 2 or 3 days a week running a business, that's not right. It's not right. Go rent a building. Go do whatever you need to do. But you can't rent something 2 or 3 times a week and run a business and put money in your pocket. That's not how it works.
Okay, and this is the paper she put up today. She rented from the 17th, 18th, 6 days for $50. She got a receipt and everything on here, and she got the dates put out: 17th, 18th, 20th, 24th, 25th, and 27th from 6 to 8 with the $50 payment.
Again, in times past, we don't want to make the payments or the price to rent anything so onerous that then somebody wants to have a birthday party and they can't because it's too expensive. So we've kind of kept, and that cities do that all the time. I think the main thing is to try to keep a private business from going on in there, or to somebody getting it every day, every week, and taking all the time.
So I'm one of the guys that be at the table all the time, me and a couple buddies. Well, our problem is we got accused of gambling and selling drugs, right? Well, a lot of people, they come to the park now because the park been upgraded just like you said. And when they come in, we feel bullied because we have to move, and we've been going there for 10 plus years, and that's our problem. That's all I want to say about that.
Normally when they rent an area of the park or pavilion or whatever, normally they show up early and with their thing to set up and everything. It's unusual, highly unusual. Show up a day or two early just to tell anybody there, on this day I'm going to be here, you better be gone. That's really not happen much, so we'll try to take care of all that.
Okay.
I would like to thank everybody that came tonight for your input, and I want to reiterate, I thank Ricky Harris for the work that he's done as the park director in this town since he's been here. It's a very hard job, sometimes just getting it in between things and just trying to fix it. And the city council will take care of those things, but day-to-day operations are under the city manager, and those are city manager functions. If you look at the organizational chart, they fall within they go according to the organizational structure. The departments, not only just the parks, they come under the city manager. And you need to call to the city hall at 903-575-4000 before you get all that twisted all up. Because some of this could have been just taken care of when people saw the receipts and things that were issued by the city for the city manager to take care of. Because many times, some of us are kind of blindsided of the whole picture up here, what's going on. And then when you begin to speak on information, you don't have the whole story. You might just have one side of a story and not all of it. So, and I think this is something that needs to be addressed. But again, as far as city government is concerned, according to the chart and the organizational structure, these are city manager functions under his departments like any other department. So if there's a question or anything, they need to be directed to the city hall at 903-575-4000 for the direct and correct answer per the charter or the ordinance of any issue that we're dealing with city government.
All right. Okay. Well, that's one of the other thing that I was gonna have you address, Rick, is when we have someone to rent the pavilion and they remove the tables, we need to have something in there having to put them back, because I'm aware that this young lady is using it and she's removing the tables and she's leaving them about on the grass. And so when the next people come in to use it, they have to actually go and move these tables back to the pavilion before using. And a lot of these people that's using that area, elderly people that maybe on disability, they're just coming out to enjoy the park, play cards or dominoes or whatever, and they're not able to lift those. So if they're gonna remove the tables and stuff, like, we make sure that they put them back. Well, it will, like I said, we will address all these issues. Will be addressed. And we ask that y'all be patient. Just give us a little time. It will be taken care of. I can guarantee you that. Ms. Sproul?
I do have one more question since we're talking about all this. Is it possible, Carrie, to consider limiting rentals and leasing of our facilities for any kind of event to citizens only? You almost, you need to be not from out of town coming over here trying to. Is there a possible way that we could limit some of that, where it has to at least have a local address to use? Because if we need to follow up because there is damage or something, they're just coming in and leaving, and like they said, they're not paying any taxes or anything to help maintain the facilities. These are built for our community.
Board with no intent. And the problem is verifying all that. If you can do it and say it's limited to the resident, just strictly based on residency, probably not. It's just verifying. You're gonna have to figure out a system of verifying and who's who and all that. So you get back to the enforcement issues that you're already up against on a lot of this.
What we had that again, Ricky and I and Carrie, we've been doing this a long time, and so in other places we've restricted it to only in city residents. And usually if it's sports guys, they want to play football or practice, whatever, the coach lives in another city, he just gets a parent that come do it that lives in the city, or they get a friend, they need an address or utility bill. They can always get around that. So it's hard to verify it and it's hard to enforce it.
All righty. I think we've been on this subject a while. We're going to go ahead and move on from here. And we certainly want to thank everyone for showing up. We thank you for coming in and addressing these concerns and bringing that to all of our attention. So I want to thank you all for coming. But as of now, that item is closed on the agenda, and we're going to move on to item 13, which is our city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I have just a couple of things. One thing I wanted to point out is I've had 3 or 4 calls, not talked directly to a person, but I've had messages left where people were very sincerely grateful that you all allowed us to make Keith and his crews, and maybe some parks crews, but mainly Keith, after this last weather event where trees and limbs and were everywhere. You all know we had Keith. He had equipment and people that went out with the dump trucks and dump trailers and just rolled through the city and picked up all the brush that was on the street. And we let everybody know to do that. and didn't charge anybody, just rolled through and cleaned up the city. I think we did it for a week, or did we do longer, 2 weeks? People would see us doing it and then run and pull more stuff to it, and so he did it 2 weeks, and then if he'd hear another pile different ways, he'd run get it, but then he went through it after we closed it another week. But people were very sincerely grateful that we did that, and I've noticed as you drive the back roads, I do a lot to Winfield and down to Emory and different ones. There's a lot of cities that still have the dead trees laying on the side of the streets, and trying to figure out how to deal with that. And so, but I've had people tell me that, and I had somebody come see me the other day and said he mentioned that he knew who I was, and so he said, could you tell him how grateful we are for the city council picked up our limbs? So I mean, I'm hearing it a lot, so I just wanted to let you know that when you have a weather event and it's a big thing, overwhelming to people, that little gesture is very well received. Then that in mind, Republic, our waste hauler, has indicated, sent a letter to us that they are asking for a CPI raise this year. It's 3 or 4%. I don't have the letter right here. We're going to bring it to you next week on the agenda for you to adopt it, or vote on it, I'm sorry, consider it. And it's per the contract. They can come every year and ask for a CPI increase. For a couple of years, they didn't do it when we redid the contract a couple of years ago. They didn't do it for a couple of years, and then they did last year, and they're coming this year too. So it's a few cents, 30 or 40 cents a month, and they're planning on doing that. And I just want to let you know that'll be coming next week.
All right, thank you, Mr. Thatcher. Council, if we didn't have any questions for Mr. Thatcher, we'll move on. Okay, at this time, we'll go ahead and close item 13, and we'll move on to our executive session. Pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551, Texas Government Code, the City Council will recess into executive session to discuss the following. So personal matters, to discuss the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee. At this time, the council is in executive session. All right, the time is now 10:10 p.m. We are reconvening from an executive session. There's no action taken on the item. We are now adjourned.